She wasn't cheating for pleasure. She was surviving his rage. The shocking story of Clara from Houston. What if your husband's fists left fewer scars than his silence? Subscribe now, because not all bruises are visible. The morning light that spilled into Clara's kitchen was soft and golden. But it made her flinch. Not from the brightness, but from the way it painted the worn edges of her life in high definition. She stood at the marble countertop, hands trembling slightly as she arranged fruit slices into perfect spirals. Marcus liked neatness, especially in the little things. She could hear him upstairs, the heavy fall of his boots as he dressed for the gym. Every sound he made carved anxiety into her skin. The man had never laid her out with a punch, but his silence could last days. His eyes could freeze water, and his hands, when he did touch her, held her wrist just a beat too long. Marcus was a creature of routine and control. Clara used to mistake that for discipline, for devotion. Now she understood it was simply ownership. He had sculpted her days into a quiet loop: wait before him, prepare his breakfast, tend to their 5-year-old daughter, make sure the laundry was folded just right. Clara hadn't danced in nearly 6 years. Not since the wedding. She wasn't unhappy, exactly, but she wasn't anything, not anymore. The door opened. Marcus walked in, already dressed in black gym wear, arms bulging under tight fabric, jaw clean-shaven, eyes unreadable. He didn't say good morning. He just inspected the fruit plate and poured himself coffee. "Your phone died last night," he said without looking up. Clara's throat tightened. "I put it on the charger. Maybe the cable." "New one. Already ordered it." He cut her off. "Also, I turned off your IG account. Too many men liking your posts." She nodded. Of course he had. Marcus glanced toward the living room, where their daughter was watching cartoons. Legs crossed, giggling. "Take her outside today. Fresh air," he said, then his voice dropped half a register. "And don't wear that black tank again." She didn't ask why. She never did. After he left, Clara exhaled like she had been holding her breath for an hour. Her hands found the counter again for balance. She wasn't afraid of him. Exactly, but she lived in a perpetual state of readiness, of making herself smaller, of apologizing for air she took up. That afternoon, she took her daughter to the park, and there, like fate flexing for once on her behalf, she saw him, Leo. He was crouched near the fountain, snapping a photo of pigeons scattering in flight. The same tilt of head, the same focus. Her chest ached. He looked up, saw her, and froze, then smiled. "Clara?" His voice hadn't changed, velvet and warmth, like everything she'd forgotten she deserved. She smiled, tentative. They sat on a bench while the child ran circles, talked about nothing and everything. Leo was now a photographer for an arts magazine, had a studio nearby, and, God help her, still remembered her favorite stretch warm-up. He didn't ask about Marcus, just watched her carefully, like she might crack if spoken to too directly. When she stood to leave, he handed her a card. "If you ever want to remember what your life felt like before it got quiet," he said, "come by." That night, Clara didn't sleep. She lay in bed beside a man who never touched her unless for show, listening to the sound of her daughter breathing through the monitor. Her body felt foreign, like a thing on loan. Her memories of dance, of movement, felt like some other woman's dream. Leo had awakened something, not lust, not rebellion, hope, and hope was dangerous in a cage. When Marcus stirred beside her, Clara instinctively stilled. The air between them was thick with the things they didn't say. His arm brushed hers and she didn't flinch. But neither did she lean. She wondered, for the first time in years, if silence could bruise. And she knew, with a cold certainty, it could kill. Marcus noticed the message from Leo before Clara could even delete it. It was simple, innocent to anyone else. "The photos look amazing. Let me know if you want to do another set next week." But Marcus read silence like scripture. He looked at the message, looked at her, and held her gaze for exactly 3 seconds. No shouting, no raised fist, just the vacuum of his stare before he turned and walked into the garage. Clara stood frozen in the kitchen, heart thudding, her fingers twitching like they remembered a melody they weren't allowed to play. She knew that look, she knew the storm that brewed behind it. That night, nothing happened, nothing obvious. They ate dinner in silence. Their daughter hummed through spoonfuls of mac and cheese. Marcus chewed slowly, eyes never leaving his plate. Clara tried to match his pace, tried not to shake. But the next morning, every card in Clara's wallet declined. Bank app, locked. Allowance account, wiped. She didn't need a lecture. Marcus delivered his message with precision. Her world shrank again, and she understood. She was being punished. He didn't confront, he corrected. That week, Clara lied. To herself, to him, to her daughter. She said she was volunteering at the community center. In truth, she took the bus to Leo's studio across town. A rundown warehouse with perfect light and peeling walls. She wore her old leotard under a coat. It didn't fit quite the same. But neither did her soul. Leo greeted her like the world was still soft. Clara, he said, just her name, and it nearly made her knees buckle. They didn't kiss, they didn't even touch, he just adjusted the lens. Had her spin once, twice, stretch on her toes. The shutter sounded like applause. Between shots, he offered water, silence, and eventually, questions, gentle ones. Are you happy? She couldn't answer. Does he hurt you? No, she whispered. Not like that. He waited. He erases me, in pieces. I don't even know what I like to eat anymore. Leo didn't interrupt. He just nodded, like he'd seen this before. Like maybe he'd been this before. When the camera finally clicked off, Clara sat on the floor. The sunlight spilled over her like some ancient baptism. I haven't cried in years, she said. It feels selfish. It feels human, he replied. The tears came then, quiet, reluctant, but real. Leo didn't reach for her. He just moved closer and let her lean. Her cheek on his shoulder felt like the first time her name had been spoken in years without judgment. They didn't speak of Marcus. They didn't speak of love. They just sat. But something shifted. When Clara returned home, Marcus was waiting. He didn't ask where she had been. He simply stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Your daughter missed you, he said. She nodded, stepped inside, kissed the child sleeping on the couch. Marcus didn't follow her upstairs. That night, she locked the bathroom door while she showered. For the first time, and it felt like a revolution. Not loud, but undeniable. Clara found it by accident. She was vacuuming the living room, an act of habit more than necessity, when the corner of the device caught her eye beneath the sofa. At first, she thought it was a child's toy, a plastic chip, maybe from a game, but when she picked it up, her stomach dropped. It was a bug, a listening device. Not large, not blinking, just a small black shell with a tiny receiver, silent. Watching, her breath caught. Her first instinct wasn't panic. It was shame, that same old reflex. What had I done to deserve this? She didn't cry, she didn't scream, she stood there, the vacuum still humming behind her, and stared at the thing in her palm. Then she turned off the vacuum and walked to her bedroom, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed. Leo was the first person she called. He didn't say anything for a full 10 seconds after she told him. Where are you now? He finally asked. Home. Is he there? No. Jim. Okay, Leo said, calm but coiled. Check your phone. He might have an app installed. I'll guide you. He walked her through it. Hidden apps folder, permissions, background access, and there it was, a location tracker masked as a calendar widget. Clara's hands trembled as she uninstalled it. You're being monitored, Leo said. This isn't just control anymore. It's surveillance. The word felt heavy in her ears. Surveillance. Like she was a suspect. Like she'd done something wrong. Later that night, after putting her daughter to bed, Clara went back to the device. She examined it again, looked for branding, a serial number, nothing, but she had Leo's contact at a tech repair shop extract the last known connection point. It matched Marcus's old work laptop. So he planted it, and he listened. From then on, Clara changed. Not in a way Marcus could see. She still made his protein shakes. Still folded his gym clothes. Still nodded at the right pauses when he talked about deadlifts and loyalty and how women on Instagram were all fake. But inside, something clicked. She began recording. Not secretly, not dangerously, just a voice memo app she kept open when Marcus was home. The way he asked where she had been. In that razor-thin tone of pretend calm. The way he mentioned Leo's name without ever actually saying it. Your little friend must think you're more interesting than you are. She archived every veiled threat. Every moment of silence that stretched so long it hummed. And then, the folder she never meant to find. Leo called her one evening. You should see this. He sent the file. A police report. Dated 6 years ago. Marcus had been accused of domestic assault by a former girlfriend, a bartender from San Antonio. She claimed he slammed her head into a car door during an argument. No charges filed. The case never went to trial. The gym Marcus trained at had ties to a local councilman. The whole thing was swept under. Clara sat at her desk, reading and rereading the report. There were photos, a bruised cheek, a hairline fracture, a statement typed in all caps. He said if I spoke, he'd ruin me. She closed the file. And she didn't cry. She got up, put her daughter to sleep, and then sat on the floor of the laundry room, back pressed against the wall, and wrote a list. Things I know. 1. Marcus tracks my phone. 2. Marcus listens when I think I'm alone. 3. Marcus has a history of violence. 4. Marcus is escalating. 5. I am no longer safe. She titled it, For the Lawyer. Just in case. There was no plan yet. But the seed was planted. She would not be erased. She would not be another file that disappeared. And as the days passed, Clara smiled more, not because things were better, but because she knew something Marcus didn't. The performance was ending, and she had been recording the whole show. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend. Marcus told Clara he had a fitness seminar in Dallas. 2 nights away. He packed light, 2 t-shirts, gym shoes, protein powder, kissed their daughter on the forehead, and walked out with the same smug confidence he wore like cologne. Clara didn't ask questions. She helped him zip the bag. Leo arrived 20 minutes later. It wasn't planned. Not really. Clara had only texted, "He's gone. I need someone to remind me I'm not crazy." Leo came with takeout and a borrowed camera. They didn't shoot. They didn't eat much either. They sat on the floor of the living room, backs against the sofa, while Clara let the silence crawl over her. For the first time, the house didn't hum with tension. It breathed. "You don't have to talk," Leo said. She did anyway. About her daughter, her past, the way Marcus once made her feel like the most desired woman in the world, then slowly trimmed her life down to only him. Like bonsai pruning. Leo listened, really listened. She cried once, not loudly, just one of those tears that escapes despite your best effort to pretend you're strong. Then the front door opened. Too softly. Leo reacted first, straightening like a soldier caught off duty. Clara turned her head, and froze. Marcus stood in the doorway. No bag, no keys in hand, just him, eyes locked on Leo, then on her. "So this is what you do when I leave." Clara stood quickly. "You said Dallas." Plans changed. His tone wasn't loud, it was colder. He stepped inside, shut the door with a calm that made Leo tense. "Get out," Marcus said. Leo didn't move. Now, still, Leo stood his ground. "I'm not leaving her alone with you." Then it snapped. Marcus lunged. A fist, a yell, chaos. Clara screamed. The coffee table shattered beneath Leo and Marcus as they slammed into it. Glass and wood splintered. Leo hit back, but Marcus was trained, bulkier, angrier. Clara grabbed Marcus's arm, tried to pull him off, but he shoved her away. Her head hit the edge of the counter with a sickening crack. Time warped. She heard Leo shout her name, but it was muffled. She tasted metal. She couldn't move. And then, somehow, her body found the kitchen. Hands, drawer, steel, a knife. Marcus turned. She doesn't remember the scream, Just the flash of his face before the blade met it. Blood sprayed red against the white walls. A mural of every suppressed emotion she'd bottled for years. Leo rushed to her, grabbed the knife from her hand. Marcus lay slumped, unmoving. Sirens. How did they come so fast? Maybe a neighbor, maybe the gods. The door burst open. Clara was on her knees. Hands trembling, face wet with something. Tears. Blood, she wasn't sure. Officers shouted commands. Leo raised his hands. Clara didn't move. She just kept whispering something to herself. Again and again. It was never just me. One officer knelt. "Mom, are you hurt?" She looked at him, through him, then to Marcus. His chest didn't rise. Leo was crying now, not sobbing, just leaking grief in silence. Clara blinked slowly, not shock, not relief, just emptiness, like she'd finally shed the final layer of skin he wrapped around her. The police didn't cuff her immediately. Maybe they saw the bruises that had never made it to her skin. Maybe they felt the weight in the room. One of them called it in as a domestic assault gone violent. Another muttered, "It could have been her." Clara heard it, didn't flinch. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was done. The courtroom was cold, but Clara felt nothing. She sat still, hands folded in her lap. As the verdict was read, her lawyer whispered something, confirmation, maybe, or a breath of relief, but the words dissolved before they reached her. All she could hear was the echo of that night. The crash, the scream, the silence afterward. Not guilty, self-defense. It should have felt like release. But justice didn't taste like triumph. It tasted like metal, like breath held too long, like blood. Leo waited outside with their daughter, her small hand clasped in his, eyes too wide for her age. Clara kissed her child's forehead and didn't say a word. Instead, she looked up at the sky, unusually blue for Houston, and made a silent promise. We start again, but not by forgetting. They left the city the next morning. No fanfare, no announcements, just a moving truck, a long drive, and Leo's fingers tapping the wheel in quiet rhythm. Arizona felt dry, but honest, a place with nothing to hide. Marcus's face was on the news for 2 nights. Then it disappeared, just another domestic tragedy buried under headlines. But Clara never buried him. He visited in dreams, sometimes as a shadow in the mirror, sometimes as a hand on her shoulder. There were nights she'd wake up clawing at her sheets, mouth open but silent. Leo never asked for details. He held her until she stopped shaking, until the memories retreated like a tide. She tried to return to who she'd been, but that woman no longer fit her skin. So she built something new. It began with movement, with breath, with bare feet on wooden floors. She rented a small studio near the outskirts of town. It smelled like dust and old roses. Perfect. The first students came hesitantly. Women with tight shoulders and tired eyes. They didn't know each other. They didn't know Clara, but the music played, and slowly, the bodies remembered. She called it Pulse, a dance therapy class for women who had forgotten their own rhythms. They didn't talk about what happened. Not at first, but in the spaces between stretches and pirouettes. Stories bled out, a bruise here, a silence there, someone who'd left, someone who couldn't. Clara never preached, she moved. She taught him to take up space, to own their balance, to fall and get up. Again and again, she kept the studio warm, the lights soft, no mirrors, just reflections in each other's eyes. One evening, a woman named Jules stayed after class. "Do you ever stop being afraid?" she asked. Clara thought for a long moment. Then, no, but fear becomes something else. It becomes fuel. That night, Clara lit a candle by her bedside. She watched the flame flicker. And for the first time in months, Marcus didn't come. He was still in her story, but no longer in control. She kept a journal now, not of the past, but of each day survived. Small victories, a new song, a student who laughed, her daughter learning to ride a bike. Sometimes, she wrote letters she never sent. To the woman she used to be. To Marcus. To Leo. Mostly, she wrote to remember. I made it out. I am not what was done to me. She taught her daughter to dance. Not just steps, but freedom. The little girl twirled barefoot through the kitchen. Giggling, Clara would smile, then wipe away a tear before anyone saw. The shadows never vanished, but they softened, became outlines, not anchors. One afternoon, a reporter reached out, heard about Pulse, wanted to do a piece. Clara declined. She wasn't ready to be a headline. But the woman on the phone said, "What you're doing, it matters. People need to know they can come back." Clara hung up, and sat in silence for a long time. Then she walked into the studio, turned up the music, and danced alone. Later, she baked a cake, chocolate, rich, layered. She took a slice to the small altar in the back of the studio, just a candle and a photo of no one. Just space, just memory. A student asked her, once, why the studio's motto read, "Some prisons don't need bars." Clara smiled, and finished the quote aloud. "And some escapes cost blood." And then the music played. And she moved again. They say scars fade with time. But some women wear them like diamonds, hidden under silk, lit by candlelight, and guarded by secrets whispered in dark hallways. Because not every story ends with healing. Some begin with hunger. Kiss Mark in the next episode of Infidelity Chronicles. We step inside the life of a woman who had everything, wealth, status, and a husband who worshipped her. But when desire turns into a game, and pleasure becomes power, how far will a perfect wife go to stay young, wanted, and in control? Subscribe now, because next time, the affair isn't about love, it's about dominance. And someone's about to lose more than their marriage.